Hi, I'm Ryan and my dog Barrett, and we are Adventure Dog Overland, and you are listening to 4x4 Canada Podcast.
Hello, everyone. I'm Trisha. I'm your host on the 4x4 Canada Podcast tonight.
And I'm your other host, Wes. So, Ryan, welcome to the 4x4 Canada Podcast.
Thanks for having me. I'm really excited to talk with you guys tonight.
I'm really looking forward to it. You and I met a month ago at the Vernon meet and greet. We followed each other online for long before that, but it was really great to meet you and Barrett last month. And it's interesting. We talked a little bit about your dog. We'll totally get into Barrett. And you and I had a good chat about the breed and what a unique breed it is. And then also the fact that you don't drive a Jeep or a Toyota. You're one of those weird guys that drive a full-size truck.
Yeah. In a Toyota dealership where you were meeting me. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, totally looking forward to this. I want to talk again about Barrett and about yourself. And I know you've served with the military and that. I definitely want to get into this. Before we hop into it, I just want to remind our listeners that if you have not listened to last week's episode with Subash from Grey Wolf Overland, it's definitely worth going back. We talked a lot about his 4xe and the interesting parts of a hybrid when you're four-wheeling, or a full electric vehicle when you're out four-wheeling, and how to drive it and the different modes to drive it on. But we also talked about him growing up in India, and that's what sort of brought his love of the Jeeps up as well too. So it was everything from growing up in India to almost dying of COVID, and then going for a long adventure just to change his outlook on life after almost dying from COVID, and right up to the 4xe that he currently owns right now. An excellent episode, definitely worth checking out. Next week, we've got Zach from Lost Spike. He's an East Coaster, and we really love having our East Coast guys on. It's something that Trisha and I have not spent a lot of time on the East Coast, and we don't know much about it. Zach actually recommended, about a year ago, he recommended Ryan Marks from Hub City Overland, and that was a great interview as well. And we've had a couple other East Coasters, but we really want to talk to Zach. He has had a couple different vehicles, and we just want to talk about the whole East Coast overlanding scene. The East Coast is absolutely beautiful. Zach from Lost Spike is coming up on next week's episode. Ryan, have you spent much time on the East Coast?
I have. I'm actually born and raised from Niagara Falls, Ontario. I always I sound more American than Canadian because of that.
I also want to throw out, before we get back into this, I'll do a quick throw out to one of our partners, Bright Source. They have incredible selection of LED lights, everything from work lights to off-road lights, etc., and headlight conversions as well. Check them out at brightsource.ca and use the code 4x4 Canada, and you get 15% off. And I want to thank Bright Source. They've been a huge supporter of ours right from the beginning. And we had a great interview with them about almost the last fall, I guess it would be. And we've got some neat things coming up with Bright Source as well, too. Some neat product reviews coming up. But let's hop back into it. Ryan, I want to thank you for coming out tonight. And can't wait to talk about you and Barrett.
Thank you very much for having us.
We've been following you and Barrett for a bit, and your Instagram, which is Adventure Dog _Overland. Let's start it out from the beginning. You're in Alberta now, and you just mentioned to us that you grew up in Niagara Falls, Ontario. But there's probably a bit of a gap between there, right? Have you been in Alberta for a number of years, or you bounced around?
So let's call it half in Ontario, and then a bunch of bouncing around in the middle, and then ending up with the last half in Alberta of my 34 years of existence so far.
So what brought you from Ontario to Alberta?
I'll try and sum up this story. There's some crazy up and downs in there, but basically born and raised Niagara Falls. Nothing wrong with home. Lake Ontario was my backyard, lots of sailing, stuff like that. Then I got into a car crash. And the car crash led to a broken leg. At the time, I was attempting to try out for the Ultimate Fighter. I've been doing martial arts since I was about 4 years old. I'm a second-degree black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And so the car crash stopped that career. And what ended up happening is I still have that drive. So I walked myself into a recruiting office. The next day, I was allowed to officially be cleared for walking. And I signed the military on the dotted line and left home a week later at 21 years old, right after university. So,
What part of the Army were you involved in?
so from that point forward, I joined the infantry. I had 14 years in the infantry before I decided to slow it down and focus on being a father, which I have one kid, which I am a single parent of, and I couldn't be prouder of that. Behind the scenes, not a lot of people know that, but I have my kid always there as well. And we'll get into it, I think. But Barrett is the star to keep her safe from the social media world, as it were.
Yeah, I know you and I talked a bit about that in person as well, too. And so let's just hop to Barrett. Let's just get that. Barrett is a beautiful dog.
Thank you.
Barrett is brown and got a little bit of curly, but there's something different about it. So what breed is Barrett?
So he is a purebred Chesapeake Bay retriever. And many people haven't heard of them before. So I've gotten pretty good at the storytelling. It's like a pirate's tale almost. So the breed actually didn't exist until 1807. And what happened is there was a British ship sailing from Newfoundland trying to go back to England, and they ended up being stuck on the American coast due to a storm. And they were carrying two lesser Newfoundlanders, which are also known as the St. John's water dog. And what happened is they crashed due to this storm, and they crashed in Chesapeake Bay, Maryland, down in the U.S. And so the local duck hunters took those two St. John water dogs, and the theory is they were bred with other water spaniels or other types of retrievers, but it slowly created the Chesapeake Bay retriever, which is what you saw in front of you at the Vernon show. And so over time, they have this secret legacy. They start with this ship crash. They eventually made their way to the Civil War, where General Custer actually used them as his protection dogs when he was in camp. And then following on to that, President Roosevelt actually had one as well and wrote a specific letter about his Chesapeake Bay retriever being the most loyal dog he's ever seen or known.
That's quite the background on these dogs. Now, they are, obviously they're a hunting dog. They're a retriever, right?
Yes. So when it comes to the duck hunting world, the Chesapeake Bay Retriever is talked about as the highest pushing, most determined retriever you can get. The curly coat is actually there for a reason because they are able to go in colder waters than most dogs. And the curly coat keeps the frost away from their undercoat, which means they can stay warmer longer. And they've been known to retrieve up to 100 ducks a day. They're pretty resilient. And when it comes to the energy level, it's hard to maintain sometimes.
Does he have web feet?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's a weird
100% has
question,
web
but-
feet.
They do, right? Because he's with the
No,
Newfoundlander.
it's pretty. They do. Yes. Yes, they do have webbed feet. They also have very thick back legs for springing power. Have you ever seen those competitions held by Cabela's where the dogs run down this thin ramp and jump into a long pool with a measuring tape along it? They're champions at doing that. In fact, Barrett's grandmother was a gold medal winner at 29 feet off the dock into the pool.
Wow. So why this breed? What brought that on?
So another funny story. When I came to Alberta, I had no clue about them either. I grew up with purebred black labs, which were CNI dog trainees. So they were really smart dogs. You couldn't really beat them in companionship till I came to Alberta and I met my first Chesapeake Bay retriever from an ex-girlfriend. And I fell in love with the dog because it was much like a lab, but much bigger, a little bit more determined, a little bit more energy. and just really matched my personality. And so I fell in love with that one. I went on a mission to find my own. My previous one was named Trigger. He was 120 pounds, so much bigger than Barrett. And he was a very capable, muscular dog. He would carry full-blown trees around, and I actually have a video of that up on YouTube. And then unfortunately, age caught up to him. And so Barrett came into the picture. He's now 3 years old, and he might not be as big as Trigger was, but he is certainly living up to the Chesapeake name.
Right.
Yeah, he's definitely a fun-loving dog as well, too.
Yes. Yeah, they can be a bit protective. So that came into a lot of training, making sure that he's okay with everybody. He has developed a little bit of a tendency to protect my truck as he spends a lot of time in it. So it's not the best idea to go creeping into my windows if you're trying to see what gear I have in there.
That's too funny.
I had a thought there. So the goggles. Let's talk about the goggles.
Yeah.
Yes, the doggles. Another question
Was
I
that
get
an
quite
instant
often.
thing?
You have to train it. Yeah, you have to train it for sure. So as a puppy, I started him on these cheap $20 pair of goggles off of Amazon, very small. And then as he grew up, I upgraded to $120 rec specs, which are shrapnel proof with the lens. So that it's not just about a cool factor, even though everybody seems to think that's what it's about. I do spend pretty much the majority of my life outside all year round. You can see videos of us posted doing dog walks in minus 45. And so because of that, snow glare, being northern Alberta, is a big thing that I worry about when it comes to his eyes. And I want to always battle that cataracts that dogs can get. So the goggles are for battling snow glare for the 8 to 9 months of the year that we have snow up here, so that he can continue his walks, can keep his sight. And then when it developed into off-roading, he loves to stick his head out the window. So rocks, anything like that. Basically, any reason a human would wear sunglasses is a good reason for your dog to wear goggles, or rec specs in our case.
Yeah. Rocking the goggles.
Yeah.
So I'm going to ask a silly question because I don't have a dog, and I love them, but I do not have one. Are they dog-specific goggles?
Yes, they are. They are originally made for canines. So police activity, military activity, which is also where I bumped into them on the few dogs that I got to interact with overseas, specifically bomb sniffing dogs that would check our vehicles from time to time when we would come back into the fall.
Yeah, that totally makes sense for sure. He is an adventure dog for sure. What are some of the favorite things he likes to do when you guys are out? How's he with the animals and that?
So that's where the hunting instincts kick in, and a little bit of training as well. So
Yeah.
I am very lucky that a few years back I was able to leave the city and move more into the country. So on a daily basis, I see a good amount of deer, coyotes, moose, and beavers. So the adventure dog in him always wants to be around the water. And so we do come across quite a few animals on a almost weekly basis. And he is trained that if he sees something move in the distance, that he will sit in one spot and sniff and point. And he will not go towards it unless he gets a specific command from me if we were to be doing something like that. The only thing that drives him a little crazy and will follow up to 2 kilometers away is a hare, because they panic, they move fast, and his instincts just kick right in.
He is a very well-trained dog. Like I mentioned, I did spend some time with you and Barrett. I do have to say that he is a very well-trained dog. So kudos to you, because not everybody is as deep into the training as you are.
Thank you. I don't like to have to do anything, whether it's my dog, my truck, or life. I try and give it 110%. And for dog owners that are listening, if you're not aware or in the beginning stages, the dog will actually need to keep repeating his training up to about 3 years old if you really want to solidify it. So every week I continue the same training steps, whether it's just on a walk refresher real quick or just for no reason, make them stop and practice something. But you got to keep their brain actively thinking about those things to keep those good habits.
Yeah.
That makes sense. That's just like a human being, right?
Yeah. Toddlers are the same way. Yeah.
I'm still training my dog. We'll try to train her.
That's all right.
Yeah.
If you ever have any questions, feel free to shoot a message. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. What is the story behind Barrett's name? And I guess you said that there was a story behind also your whole Instagram account too, because it was once named Barrett and changed to Adventure Dog Overland.
Yes, it did. So Barrett is actually named after the Barrett 50 cal, the sniper rifle, mostly because of a Chesapeake's explosive power when they come to anything they're doing. If I don't know if you saw our little demonstration of how he uses his iCamper steps to run up into our tent, but there is no slow start with the Chesapeake Bay Retriever. It's always off the hop, go as hard and as fast as I can. So the Barrett 50 cal was a suiting name. And in the hunting dog community, it's tradition that you name a hunting breed after guns. So that's really where his name comes from.
Yeah.
And then for Barrett Overland, which is what we originally were, and I'm very thankful that if you search that, you still find us. So nobody's taken over that old hashtag yet. But
Yeah.
we eventually changed it to Adventure Dog Overland for a few reasons. One is Barrett won't be the only dog forever. So if more companions come along in the future, it made no sense just to name the channel off of one of them. Another reason was more analytical, and it was searchability, because Barrett is very specific. So when it came to the channel or Instagram, instead of having the hopes that somebody meets the dog searches Barrett, that maybe you would come across us more if you just searched Adventure Dog. So both a personal reason and a kind of business reason to the change. And I think people are starting to get used to it, but definitely when we do small little YouTube clips with our friends, like Jason, he always starts off as with Barrett Overland, and then we have to stop and redo it because he's known me since day one, right?
So how is Barrett with the drone?
Yes, Barrett treats a drone much like a duck. And that's his breed's mentality, is to focus on that. Yeah. So when the drone flies, I actually have to put him in the truck for takeoff. And if you've been around us, he is smearing his nose all the way around my windshield and barking constantly. Say, Dad, let's go. I'm ready for this. And then after takeoff, I let him out and he'll follow it for a while, but he'll only bark at my drone. If it's anybody else's drone, he'll point, he'll watch it in the sky. He won't make a peep.
Yeah.
But when it's my drone, he continuously barks. And I'm still trying to figure out if that's him going, Dad, your thing's getting away. Do you want me to go get it for you? Or if he just wants to destroy my personal property. I'm not 100% sure on that yet.
And you don't want to find out, I'm guessing.
Not really, no.
Oh, I've seen a lot of Instagram stories with, I think a lot of people who are animal lovers do have a lot of co-pilots who are dogs, like just their drones and their dogs just like jumping and chasing it, and just seeing that live action was it's pretty cute. It's funny.
I agree completely.
I was thinking because he is a hunting dog or a bird hunting dog, especially, that it must just drive him crazy.
Yeah, like he just wants to go in or like, waiting to hunt it down.
Here's again, I'm not a dog owner, bear with me. What about in the wintertime? I know you guys do a lot of adventure in the wintertime and that, and even your daily walks and that. Does he have booties for the winter so his paws will not get cut with the snow?
And for the boots, which I know with him, they go on around minus 35. Up to that, he's actually fairly comfortable with his natural abilities. After
Really?
minus 35, they do go on. It's more so just to avoid frostbite and not have that problem. They're very tough dogs. I've seen him go at a full speed 100% through a barbed wire fence and not even blink twice about it. I don't know if you want to call it stubborn or just very tough, but they are a little bit of both, as well as being smart at the same time. But for the boots, it's more just of preventive measures. And then salt. When people use salt on their sidewalks and stuff like that, it actually causes a lot more damage than the snow and ice itself. So that's why the boots go on, as well as he's got a hunting vest, which keeps him warm. So if after minus 35, I can throw that on as well. The goggles and ear protection. And after that, it's minus 50, but why are we inside?
Oh my God. Oh my gosh.
So he's just as demented as you are then.
A little bit. Like I said, the Chesapeake Bay Retrievers seem to really match my personality, so it fits well.
Fits well. Oh.
So speaking of temperatures, you were in the military for, was it 14 years or whatever you said there? You went through some extreme temperatures there, right?
Yes, I've been up in the Arctic Circle as cold as minus 65 at night, living out of a tent. And I've also been to the other extreme in the world's deserts at plus 55 through their summers. So I felt everything you can feel when it comes to the world's temperatures.
Minus 55 in a tent. I just can't imagine that. I've got my diesel heater going on at minus 10, right? So
Yeah.
I can't imagine that kind of an extreme, but you're also dressed for it properly as well, too.
Yes, 100%. Lots of layers, the proper equipment, when to keep moving, when to stop. The amount of gear that we have to carry, you actually, even in minus 50 temperatures, you end up opening up your jackets and everything, letting your body breathe. The last thing you want to do is keep everything in and sweat a lot, because then when you do stop, you really will freeze. You learn a lot about how the human body functions and how specifically your body functions in a job like that.
Do you like the cold or the heat better?
I am a cold person. I don't mind the winter whatsoever. You can always put more layers on, but it tends to be hard to cool down, right? The whole reason I have a 270 awning is to try and keep Barrett and my little one cool when the summers can get to their high points, especially when camping.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, we hit 31 degrees today and I was like cursing at it. And I'm like, dude, you're just like 3 weeks ago, I was complaining about how cold it was. So,
and I believe Ontario just had a heat wave of plus 45 as well.
Yeah, I was loving it.
That's nice.
I could do without that humidity.
Like 25, 26.
Yeah, that's the thing with Ontario. We have the humidity. You guys don't really have, you just have more of a heat, right?
Yeah,
yes, here in Alberta,
for sure.
Especially you get what you feel.
So let's swing over to the truck. You are rocking a F-150, right?
I am, yeah. It's a 2019 XLT gray, metal gray-ish F-150 with the super cab crew. So it's the biggest legroom you can get in a truck, for sure.
You need that with the dog. Now, does Barrett ride up front or Barrett ride in the back seat?
I wish he would ride in the back seat, but he has claimed the passenger seat as his, to the point that any guest wants to come along, you either are sitting under him or you're behind us. The reason for that, as being the only parent in our camping situations, when he was a puppy, because his first camping trip, he was 9 weeks old. And I brought him 5 hours into the mountains. I'm like, hey, I hope you don't get car sick. This is your life now. Congratulations. And I couldn't have him in the back chewing on everything. So I placed him up in front with me so he could chew on my hand for 5 hours. And he established himself as the co-pilot of the truck. That is his seat, his gears up there, his food's up there, his balls are up there. And he'll give you a weird look if you try and sit in his seat. And people are witnesses to that as well.
That's awesome. So with the truck, what do you got for mods? I know you're running, as you mentioned, the 270 awning, and you've got rooftop tent in that as well, right?
Yes. So I have a rule, and I try to only do 3 overland upgrades per year to be financially responsible in a new hobby that is just as expensive as any other hobby. So I try to stick to 3 upgrades per year. That's not always the case, especially if a good deal comes along. But the truck has been a slow process over about 3.5 years. And I'm very happy with it and how it came out. We have a steel rough country bumper with full skid plates in the front, rhino rack, roof rack on the cab. Went with that because of the universality. Is that a word? Universal, there we go, capability of the rack, because not all racks can fit my truck. That's one of the things with the F-150 is the overland community hasn't exactly pertained to it as much as the Tacomas, the Jeeps. So it was a learning experience to figure out what could really fit. And a lot of my stuff, specifically the racks, are universal fit. They can change sizes. So I went with the Rhino rack for the roof. It has 2 solar panels up there, RCI rack over the truck bed with tonneau cover adapters, a dog house tent from BC, and then iCamper steps for Barrett, the overland vehicle systems 270 awning, and the shower awning as well, which I use a water port, the 13-liter water port for that. And it's a little bit of a mix and match of everything because there is no one making specifically F-150 parts when it comes to overland. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's still a very capable vehicle, but it's just the aftermarket support's just not quite there yet. So
100%. I learned a lot because I had the truck prior to becoming quote unquote an overlander. And so I didn't know that my truck had lockers in it until the first time I was halfway up Ghost Plus, going to the frozen waterfall. And one of the other YouTubers there is, hey man, put your lockers on. I'm like, I don't have lockers. He reaches into my truck. All F-150s come with lockers. So that was an advantage clear off the bat that the F-150 had lockers. I don't have to install that. Barrett, come on, come down, off. Sorry. He's looking out the window right now, which is 5 feet above the ground. But the lockers are already new. Yeah. So, and they come like that right off the lot because they are a work truck.
So what motor are you running in that? Is that the EcoBoost or?
I have the 3.5 liter engine in there. So it's not the EcoBoost. It does have the smart stop. So every time I stop, the engine turns up very quickly and it also ignites very quickly, which I'm happy about. Because when that technology first came out, it took a few seconds at a red light before you got to get going again. Yeah, the engine is more than capable. The fuel economy is what I'm really proud of. I like to tease my Tacoma friends specifically, who have to fill up every 300 kilometers. Most of my trips, I can go from Edmonton down to Calgary, meet up with my friends, into the mountains, and back all the way home on one tank. I get about 1,000 kilometers to empty.
Oh man, yeah. That's why I asked about that. If you had the EcoBoost in there, because I know the fuel mileage is just ridiculous on there.
Yeah. Before all the mods, I used to get 1,200 kilometers to empty. After putting everything on, I get 1,000 still. So I'm very happy about that. I like to tease people with it. I do have 20 liters of emergency fuel that I've never used, and it's been sitting there for 2 years now in the back of the truck. So
You bring it for the
That's
Tacoma and the Jeep people.
I know. You can
yeah, yeah.
like it's a quarter of what I get. Like a quarter. What? That's crazy. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Okay, so if I ever wanted to get a truck, I need to get a Ford F150 EcoBoost.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's
My
amazing.
gas tank's 135 liters, I believe.
It takes Trisha one tank of gas to get across Toronto.
It does.
Yeah. Yeah. That's the traffic for you, though.
That's the traffic. Yep. Just taking all the gas sitting there. It's taking it all.
Yeah.
Being that there's a lot of, I'm going to say, mid-size overlanders out there, have you noticed much of a difference when you're out there with the full-size truck in regards to, say, the width and the length and stuff like that? You obviously have to approach obstacles a little bit different.
I feel the approach isn't that much different due to tire size. I do have the Method Racing wheels with a bead grip technology in them. So I can air down all the way to 0 in theory. I've never done it. I usually stay around 15. And then the 33-inch tires on top of that, the tire space allows me to approach relatively the same. Some of my friends would say I'd approach even maybe too aggressively on some obstacles. Maybe that's just the truck confidence there. But when it comes to the size, it can come into a factor, but I'll say in different places. So in Alberta, I have yet to find a trail where my truck full of clearance. When I did a trip last year where it was just me and Barrett, we did 8 days. We went 4,000 kilometers all the way to Vancouver Island, across the island and back. I found many trails where I shouldn't have been there, but we were like, yeah, let's do it anyway and see what happens, even though we were a complete solo trip. So it worked out. We got out. And the hopes and dreams we had of being an open space at the end of the trail did happen. But Alberta seems to be a little bit more open. So I do all right here for sure.
Yeah, there's pros and cons to every vehicle out there for sure. And you've got space, which a lot of us mid-sized vehicle owners don't have. And you've got amazingly fuel mileage that's better than a lot of the mid-sized vehicles, which is not right.
Which is not right.
We'll go with that. Yeah. The super cab actually it allows me to have the solar generator and my 45-liter fridge in the back seat with the seats down. So that's where I keep everything nice and locked and secured. The trunk or bed is really just for the fun gear, like the kayak, the chairs, the tables, that kind of stuff. So everything that's important is in the cab, nice and secure. And I really like that. So
what is it about the exploring and four-wheeling and overlanding that just keeps you coming back out there?
for me, it's almost like a feeling of home from those 14 years. So I was light infantry. So I never spent any time really inside a military vehicle unless it was a helicopter. So my whole career was, you could average about 160 to about 200 days a year was outside, sleeping in holes and under bushes and trees and stuff. So overlanding is like being in a 5-star hotel back in what I'm used to, if that's fair. And because it's like that 5-star hotel
makes
to me,
sense.
anyways, without going into RV world, I can bring my family along and everybody can be comfortable and have fun, unlike living out of a backpack. So it's really the best of both worlds. You get to go aside, you really get to enjoy nature, spend time doing fun things, and be comfortable all in one.
I know that you keep your daughter out of the social media and that, and I totally understand that. But does she love the outdoors just as much as you and Barrett?
Yes, 100%. I get asked when we're going camping next on a daily basis, whether it's winter or summer. The first time I took her winter camping, it was -20. She was 2 years old. And I did the old-fashioned hot tent and wood stove. So we cooked food on the inside of the
Mm.
tent, roasted marshmallows inside. And I really wanted to start that love at a young age, using the skills
Mhm.
that I have to not really be afraid of what temperature it is and always know how to plan for the worst. So I used my skills to make
Mm.
sure that I could bring a very young kid out with me and have a great time and fall in love with the idea that outside isn't seasonal, which I think maybe some people lose along the way.
And to be honest with you, this year I made a goal to camp at least once a month of every year. Or sorry, once a month for the year. I've camped in January, February, and luckily it's been fairly warm this year, but that's something that I never considered before, was camping in the winter, because it just seemed like, why kind of idea, right? Yeah, a lot of people tend to lose that, but we're in Canada. You're going to have cool weather from October to March.
And in our case, as far as
The
June sometimes.
Yeah, good old summertime in Alberta, right?
So when you are out camping or overlanding and whatnot, what are you cooking up on your grill?
It's a mix and match answer. So it depends what everybody really wants to eat. My little one likes to keep it simple, your typical hot dog, s'mores, and cereal in the morning. I like
Yeah.
to get a little fancy with it sometimes,
Mm.
especially when I hang out with people like Andrew from Overland and stuff like that, where they all have these, what are they called? The new thing everybody's got, the scottles, skillet, with the woks. That's it. So when I hang around those groups and they're all cooking these fancy meals, you start to want to get those ideas. I do really enjoy the old fashioned Dutch oven where you place it on the coals of a natural fire. You put the coals on top. I've done
Yeah.
donuts in it. I've done pizza. I tried to do bread, stuff like that. And that can be a lot
Yeah.
of fun. You have to pay attention to it though. But I try and mix it up. Sometimes we packed up in 1 hour. We decided we're going camping and it's the basics. Other times I pack up good food and plan to specifically cook good food. When it comes to
Yeah.
YouTube, I don't spend a lot of time showing cooking. Maybe that's something people like to see. I usually just show Barrett eating the cooking because it tends to be the dog popularity that gets it. Yeah.
That's cool. It's always cool to hear what everyone has different meals and different like cookware, like you said. And just it's cool just to see and hear what people are actually making because we're all foodies in a way.
I think so for sure. Yeah.
You should have seen Trisha at the Vernon Overlander meet that Ryan and I were at. It's basically a
Mhm.
bunch of YouTube and Instagram overlanders,
Yeah.
and there was so much good food out there. One of Mike
Mhm.
from Okanagan Overlanding, he's got a scuttle and he's cooking up food, and I hadn't eaten all day. I was so busy talking to everybody, I forgot to eat. So when I got there, I quickly cooked up mine. But I'm wandering
Yeah.
around after, and everybody's offering food, and then Dwayne from
Yeah.
Just Keeping Adventures.
Yeah. Yeah.
Who the hell pulls up with a smoker? Who brings a
What?
smoker camping with them, right?
Yeah.
Wow. That's
I
dedication
had
right
the
there.
on I had the honor of actually getting to try food from his smoker that night too, and it's unreal what that
Yeah.
person has figured out.
Wow.
It was funny. He had pork sirloin and in the smoker, and then mashed potatoes. Not just Dwayne can't do regular mashed potatoes, right? Because that's
Yeah.
just not him. And he put something in there with some sort of a white cheese. I can't remember the name of it, right? And then some spices
Yeah.
in there, and it's just so I'm sitting
Mm-hmm.
there with that, and then you right next to him is Skyward Overland, and they've
Mm-hmm.
got salmon. They're cooking salmon on a cedar plank, And I'm like,
Oh,
I'm just not even gonna bother bringing food next time.
Yeah, it's unreal when you're around people that have such a cooking level out in the middle of nowhere. It makes you really
yeah.
question what you even brought in your fridge or freezer or cooler in the first place.
It was a real eye opener for sure. I've been trying to do a thing where I try to cook a different meal each time I'm out. And so that I found has been a little hard, but still exciting because it gives me some chance to plan. And I'm actually preparing some of the meals at home or preparing some of the food at home. So I'm actually eating better. I'm not just sitting there with a smoky 12 smokies and a bag of chips kind of idea. So
Mhm.
trying to help be healthier and go from there. But I know one of the things I'm working on, we're heading out tomorrow afternoon, camp with some friends. And one of the things I'm going to be doing is Mexican corn over the fire.
Oh.
And looking forward to that. And then we're also going to do street tacos. So nice and simple, right? For the most part. The sauce for the corn, I'll make up in the morning. And so I don't
Yep.
have to do as much prep work out in the field. And I think that's key to having a good meal is the prep work ahead of time.
And then you could, yep, chef it up there. That's nice. That's gonna be good.
So last thing I'll say about food, I saw something on Instagram the other day, guys. I shared it on my own personal Instagram. I think I shared it as a story, but it was donuts, glazed donuts from Dunkin' Donuts. So the round donuts with the center cut out of it. And
Mhm.
then they put marshmallows in the
Oh
center
my God. I
of the
saw that.
donut and then cooked them over the fire kind of idea. And I'm just thinking, man, you put a little bit of chocolate drizzle on that. And I'm not going to try it yet because I'm trying to eat healthier. And everything I see on Instagram for food wise is crap for me. But donuts with a marshmallow in the center,
Oh my gosh.
No,
That's
I'd
so
say,
unhealthy, but so
like,
good probably.
yeah, I see that, and I think even worse because I go, yeah, I got a freezer. I could bring some vanilla ice cream and put that on top as well, right?
oh, dude, there you go.
It's cool to see all the different stuff. Ryan, I have a question for you. Been in the military for quite a few years, but before that, have you grown up camping or 4x4ing any other vehicles, or did you grow up in that lifestyle as well, just being outdoors, and then get into overlanding in later in life?
I really didn't. You might know because you're in Ontario, but Ontario is more of a cottage life. At least
Yep.
if we go back, we're talking, oh gosh, I'm dating myself like 19 years now. But the cottage life was really what it was about. So you
Sure.
took it easy in the winter. Summer comes around, you head up to Muskoka. You go, what was that like? Yeah, Algonquin, stuff like that. And you hang out at the cottage, you boat around when gas was affordable for your boat. And then I really didn't get into it really until only 4 years ago. So I spent lots of time outdoors in my job, but not prior to that. And then 4 years ago, when I started to back away from it, start to think about changing what I'm doing with my life, I also had my little one, and I knew we were pushing into a world of technology, which is fine when you're thinking about the future. But I also wanted the to give the opportunity to teach all the outdoor stuff that I knew, just so that when you're out in the middle of nowhere and the GPS isn't working, you go, oh, yeah, dad taught me how to do this. I know where north is. I know to remember where I came from. So I think those skills are life skills and to pass them on because I wish I could be better at technology so I could teach that as well. But I do know that's where school in the future comes in for that. But the more it goes in that direction, the farther away we get from nature. And I still have the nature skills that I can pass on. So now we are a very outdoorsy group of three. As much as we can, like you said, I try to get out at least once or twice a month all year round. Yeah.
Mhm. I agree with you. It's definitely taking over.
And to answer your other question, yeah, even 4x4s. I really didn't have any experience in any of it until all of a sudden I was buying a rooftop tent, putting a rack on the truck, and then going, hey, can I follow you out there? And having everybody look at me weird because I just had this stock F-150, which even today I get the odd weird look of, really? You want to follow us? I go, hey, if I know I need to stop, I'll stop. But I'm going to follow you as long as I can. And so far, I haven't had to stop.
I think nowadays we're seeing more and more not different, I should say, trucks, more Land Rovers, more FJs, and not just like Jeeps and Broncos, I guess you can say. I think more people are getting into it, and it's awesome to see. And I'm myself wheeling with trucks and other vehicles other than Jeeps.
For sure. It's pretty cool. That's where shows, I think, like Vernon or the AOA, so the Alberta Outdoor Show, or B Corps, I think that's where they really can become fun because you get to walk around, check out all these different types of builds and how people like to do things differently. Last year when I went to B Corps, I got to meet Fire Truck Rosie. I don't know if you guys know that account, but they took this old fire truck, converted it into an expedition vehicle, essentially. I love watching their adventures. Sometimes size, we all think of it. I was like, oh, you're not going to fit down that trail. And then, hey, if I just saw a fire truck roll down the trail, so maybe it'll be all right.
Speaking of the BC Overland Rally, that is coming up in less than a month. And you got the new location down at Kelowna. And are you going to be able to make it down this year?
So I won't be. I have a very unique, bigger adventure for me that is coming up at roughly the same time. So when it comes to time and cost, I chose an adventure that's going to take me to someplace completely new versus going to B Corps this year. You might find us there next year, though. Next year, I have a plan to head down south, check out Utah, Montana, and focus on getting Barrett to more expos. You'll always find us at the AOA, the Alberta Outdoor Show. That's where we call our home, of course. It's also the closest expo to us by only 2 hours, which is great. But so, yeah, hopefully we'll see you at B Corps maybe next year. But yeah.
Shout out to B Corps, the BC Overland Rally. Like you mentioned, it's a new location in Kelowna. And I do want to give a shout out to them because it's one of the better events in BC for the overlanding industry. And I will be there. To our listeners, if you see this gray bearded guy wandering around with the 4x4 Canada podcast shirt on, reach out, say hi. And we always love talking to our listeners at the events and that. So I'm really looking forward to it. I'm arriving in Thursday midday, and it's going to be another great event there. You also mentioned the Alberta Outdoor Adventure Expo. And that is another wonderful event. And that's a September long weekend up towards Hinton, isn't it? Or is it Edson?
It's in Edson, yeah.
Yeah, so that's another great event. We just had Jason here from the event probably about a month or so ago talking about it. And that's another really fun event that I haven't made it yet. I do hope to make it this year. I'm not sure exactly how it's going to work out yet, but trying to work a couple things out. So hopefully we'll see you there.
For sure. And Trisha, I know I follow a group that also is starting to put together one based in Ontario, but I can't remember the name at the moment. Do you know the one I'm talking about?
Overland North.
That's the one.
Is it is it Overland?
Yeah. Oh yeah, Overland North. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
Yeah, they just had one event, I believe it was last weekend, and then they've got another one coming up. Trisha went to her first one last year and discovered how much money she can spend overlanding.
Too much money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If I could actually make a point on that. So currently, this shocks some people, but currently to date, I am under $11,000 on my build, which might sound like a lot for somebody listening that maybe is just starting in overland, but compared to some of my friends out there, that's actually quite a small amount to have what I would consider a complete build. I have everything I need. I did that over a span of 3.5 years as well. So it's a proud thing I like to talk about when I'm talking to people that are just starting their interest in the world of overlanding, that you can start off slow and wait for the right moments, maybe the right deals, stuff like that, and get yourself to a point while being financially responsible. Because I have friends that have $70,000 Tacomas and have easily put $45,000 into them.
Yeah, I totally agree. You've seen my setup in my Tacoma. It is simple. I've got a rooftop tent, and it's a good quality rooftop tent. I spent the money to make sure that I wasn't getting a $700 Alibaba tent, right? Shout out to the guys in Tree Line in Alberta there. But I agree 100%. Spend money on quality product, but you don't have to go out and spend all kinds of money. When I first moved back from Ontario, I actually went to the secondhand stores. And that's where I got my plates and my silverware. And I think I spent about $5 on getting a whole tub full of stuff. So you don't need to spend a lot of money. And you can just start off with a regular ground tent from, Canadian Tire or, Walmart or whatever, and go from there. It's just about getting out there and exploring and learning how to do it safely and go from there. Yeah, there's, so many people that have got 100 grand into their rigs, but you don't need it.
But they do look cool.
I have to admit, if I won the lottery, I'd be showing up at Crave with a brand new Tacoma and say, here, Bill, do your magic, right? But
100%. Yeah.
So you briefly mentioned you have some plans coming up. Are those plans like some adventures? Are you having events? Are you traveling? What's your plans coming up?
So it is a adventure and traveling. This year, I decided I would take myself to the next level and overland in another country. So what I'm doing is I'm heading to Iceland. Hopefully that new volcano is still running, because how many chances do you get to see a live volcano in your lifetime? So we'll see what happens. But I've given myself 8 days in a Suzuki Jimny in a rooftop tent, and 8 days of overlanding across or around Iceland. I'm not doing the highway circle. I'm definitely going off-road and overlanding in true fashion, but I am doing a similar loop of the entire country. So it's going to be fast-paced. It's going to be seeing a lot on a daily basis, but it's definitely an adventure of a lifetime that I can't wait to both experience and record and get up on social media when I return. And it's gonna be something else. I got the taste of overlanding in different places when I went to Costa Rica in 2023, and it was a vacation where my newfound passion for overlanding took over, and I ended up renting a vehicle for a little bit amount of time and going from the coast and going deep into the jungle and up into the cloud forest and back, doing some river crossings and stuff like that. And from there on, I've decided that every year or every 2 years, I want to take my adventures into unknown territories. So yeah, because we could overland Canada alone our whole lives and still find new things every day. But there's a lot of world to see, and time is never on our side. So I'm just going for it. Yeah.
Going for it. Yeah, you're right. Time's on our side. Just go for it. Enjoy it. Enjoy your life. And is Barrett going with you, or is he staying back?
I wish he could come to these places with me. It's more of taking care of him. The idea of him being under a plane for 15 hours just for 8 days to me seems unfair. If I had all the time in the world and we were going for 2 months, different story. But to do 15 hours under a plane, spend 8 days, then do another 15 hours of plane, it's just personally, I think, too much. I am keeping my eye on this new what's it called? There's like a new airplane that flies dogs up in the not a cockpit. What am I thinking
In the
of?
plane, like
in the passenger area.
in a passenger. I know what you're talking about. I actually have I've seen it. Now I don't remember what airline is called. It's a special airline, and yeah, they let dogs fly in the cabin.
Yes, that's it, in the cabin. So I'm
Yeah.
keeping my eye on them. Right now, they only fly between New York and some other close by spots, and they're hoping to expand to Europe soon. So
Mhm.
maybe one day we'll see Barrett up on a plane at the start of a video. But for now, I'm gonna take care of his health. And the last thing I could ever deal with is him getting lost in transit to
Yeah.
somewhere. So he'll be staying
Yeah.
with a friend of mine here, and he'll be happy to do it. But it will be a true solo adventure this time because Barrett is almost always with me. So,
I agree with you. I have dogs. She is quite small and probably can fly under the seat in cabin, but I wouldn't dare to put her underneath the plane. It's too sad. So I understand where you're coming from.
for sure.
The last question we ask all our guests is, what Canadian would you like to hear on the 4x4 Canada podcast?
So I spent a lot of time thinking about this. I've had the honor and privilege of meeting so many people through overlanding, more than I've done in anything in my entire life. The whole reason I really do overlanding is because I'm building this kind of new community in my life where for the first time I'm using social media for what it was intended to do. And that is meet people from distances like we're talking right now and really develop these new friendships where I can say, hey, I'm headed your way. Can I stop by? Can we go camping? Can we meet up? And for the first time in my life, I think that's pretty cool. On that, you find lots of people that have been supporting you for a long time. And so I have to try and return the favor where I can. And if Andre from Squatch Overland, I think he would be a great guest for you guys to have on.
Yeah, definitely a really neat guy. I've met him a couple times at the Vernon events 2 years in a row now. And all I know is I don't want to mess with him.
No, he's a big cuddler.
He's built like a brick shit house, but yeah, he's such a nice and sweet guy. So it's such a neat guy. And another Albertan, right?
Yes, 100%. Just try and support us Albertans because UBC groups tend to really conquer the social media there. Yeah.
I know, right? Those BC people. I don't know.
When he's got the most beautiful province in Canada, we might as well flaunt it, right?
That's fair. That's fair. Beauty's what you make it, though, right? So,
True.
No, exactly. It's funny. We were talking with Jason from Overland, Alberta there, and he said one of his favorite spots was actually down in the southeastern corner of Alberta. And that's not what we think of, right? You think of southwestern where the Rockies are. But he's, man, those little coulees and all. So it was actually beautiful. So it's just, like you say, it's totally what you make it. I agree 100% with that. I do want to thank you again for coming on tonight, Ryan. It's been a true pleasure. This is going to be episode 95. So, folks, we're coming up to that 100 episode mark. I've been doing this, I guess it'll be almost 2.5 years or almost 2 years in July. And it's been definitely quite a rush and quite a lot of fun doing it. And so Trisha and I are going to have a special episode 100. We still haven't decided exactly what we're going to do, but we are going to have Mike from the Unexpected Off-Road come back on. He was my very first guest 2 years ago in July. And so we're going to come back on. Mike has just got himself, he's a Hummer fanboy. He worked for Hummer when he's living in Florida. He grew up in Florida. He worked for Hummer. He went to the plant numerous times, and he's got a Hummer H2 that the Unexpected Off-Road is his YouTube and Instagram handle. And it's unexpected because people don't expect to see a Hummer H2 out, exploring. So Mike has recently, as of a week ago, taken delivery of his new Hummer EV. And so we're going to have Mike on to talk about his new Hummer EV and what his plans are for the Hummer, as well as his channel. I popped over. Mike's a very good friend of mine. I popped over on the weekend, and he actually let me drive it. And let's just say that thing has got so much power. So cool. But yeah, really looking forward to having Mike on. We are working with some of our partners to hopefully have some giveaways. We're working on that as well too in the meantime. But definitely stick around for the episode 100 with Trisha and myself. We'll be talking about a little bit of our favorite episodes over the last couple of years. And also, I'd like to say, talk with Mike, who was my very first guest 2 years ago. So once again, we're talking to Ryan from Adventure Dog Overland. You can check him out as that on YouTube and Instagram. And Matt, say thank you for coming on board and talking about your experience and talking about Barrett. He's such a great dog.
Thank you so much for having me. I know we were supposed to be talking about overlanding. So for all those listeners, yeah, you got a bit of a dog tail this time. But I'm really looking forward to seeing what you guys do next. And episode 100 coming up soon. Congratulations on that. And me and Mike have one thing in common, and that's being vehicles that you don't always see out on the trail. Mm-hmm. So we're definitely out there repping the big rigs, as you say.
Yeah.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you for
that's one thing about this podcast is that we have such a wide variety of vehicle and people. Last time with Subash from Grey Wolf Overland, we were talking about growing up in India, and that's not quite what people expect to hear, but it's all part of people's story. So everybody has a story, and it's our job to bring those stories out.
Oh, for sure. And you guys are doing a great job.
Thanks. I appreciate it. Once again, check it out. Adventure Dog Overland on Instagram and YouTube. And we can't wait to see more videos of Barrett. And you have too, of course, but of Barrett.
Yeah, I know. I got to start making more appearances. Thank you for the hint. Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks, Ryan. We appreciate you.
Thank you. You have a great night, both of you.